Hey guys, this is Loyota review, and we're reviewing over the season 2024 gameplay changes. Um, it's on the PBE right now. Granted, the matchmaking and everything is not necessarily ideal, but it is what it is. So the most interesting thing that they're gonna show is one, they changed the map layout, like where the walls are and everything. And then they added some objectives, and then of course they're changing items.
Wait, where are we?
So here's the first thing. You notice in top lane, there's a giant curved wall, and here's the tri brush, and then here's another brush. So already from the get-go, this is just so much more different. Because if you remember before, it was like this. So it was like this into this. And then you had like a little spot part here. So there was an opening to attack this way. Not anymore. Like it is a little more awkward, I'll admit, as a top laner to ward the tri brush, especially if you're under turret now. Like you would basically send your ward here versus being able to ward this. Of course, at the same time, you will see most plays if you ward here. So maybe it's not like the end of the world, especially because if you're even playing like around out here, this is still not that bad.
Blaine, these walls are different. And
let it continue a bit further. Now we see that there's no river brush. Again, no river brush. Before, you had to think about the river brush ward, this ward here, and then a lane brush ward. Now, honestly, this is kind of just it. Like, you get a pink ward on here. You put a pink. You kind of just cover everything, because it probably covers, like, around this. So it covers most of the wards around here. Pretty nice. Also makes it that if you're, like, winning in top lane and you put a pink there, like, yeah, sounds really annoying. So yeah, now when you see this expanded, it's like, wow, there is so much space here. There's a lot of space here. This means that, like, it sounds like champions that have like high movement speed for ganking wise will be better in this sense, because before you didn't need as much MS to even like cover the ground. You just had to kind of be in the right location, the right approach, and you would get them. So this is really interesting because, as you know, top lane has always been weighed a little bit less than other lanes, and now that like you get to be in more isolation, and also keep in mind, top lane is the most, I would say, the most mechanically difficult lane. Like it requires the most micro, like let's say this, it's the most micro intensive lane because it's such a like big time 1v1. Mid lane, like you will still get plenty of people going around. In bot lane, to a degree, but again, it's two people, which makes it the interactions a little bit different. But top lane for sure is the most intensive. You isolate it more. That means you want to be an even better top laner, or if you're a team, you want to have an even better top laner.
Changes across the entire map, actually.
Continuing forward,
the brush is farther back.
They do this long brush change. It's interesting and also a little weird. I don't know what to make of it. Obviously, if like before you could put a pink here and it would cover the entire lane. So like if let's say you're a blue side and you put a pink here, you could defend your pink from over the wall and it would cover this. But now it's like I could ward this. So I could put a pink here, but then I could put a green ward here or like a yellow trinket and I'm fine. Like this won't disable that. So that's kind of, it means that if you're approaching through mid, like when you're doing the dragon contest and then you move over, this actually is not as hard to approach compared to before. Before, you could actually lock this down. Now, not so much. And of course, as you know, there's a big open area here too. Before, it was a small choke. Like, it was probably like around here before. And this was like hard to like actually maneuver. And you could also control this better. And now since it's more open, it's like if you're red side, I feel like you feel happier being able to approach dragon with this change.
Side for better symmetry. Overall, these adjustments should make it a little.
And if you notice again, like, so they added these like little entrances too into mid. Before, you had like kind of like this wall, but it was really hard to get over and you have to go all the way around. Or you had like this like little shortcut, but then again, the turret was like right here. So this is interesting. Like you could even hop over this way and it's a little bit more of a surprise compared to before. It's interesting. It does mean though that like, you know, if you remember these ganks, like yeah, you could come from like the catwalk, because that's what I called it, and gank mid that way. You can't do that anymore. Like you're never gonna walk this way in the early game to gank mid. Like it's almost always through the line brush.
Those mages with 0 dashes. Speaking of safety, we've also changed the wall.
And then of course now we see this and it's like, holy shit. So you have, remember, we had that gap there, and now we have a big ass wall here too. So if you have a ward in the river and then you've seen someone just like walking around, you can chip them. Poke champs definitely get a little bit of a buff from that. You can get a pick. You can see this guy walking and feel safe here. You know, it's interesting. It also again means like a war like this is even more beneficial because like there's only 2 ways you're getting across. Before, the river was the main way to get across. Like if you're approaching through bot, you would have to go this way. Like you would just go through the river. Or you would have to go like all the way around and then like this, right? Like you would have to do something like this. Now you can go through here or here. You got 2 main entrances. So that allows bot to be a little bit more fluid in their movement.
A bit more security while you're moving between lanes through the jungle.
And then of course,
Finally, in bot lane,
this one is kind of annoying because for whatever reason, blue side gets access to this brush here. So one thing to note is the Gromp is kind of like really available and open. Like if you're a bot lane and you're stacking waves early on, as a jungle, you could just come this way, invade, and your bot lane barely has to walk anywhere. And the reason why this is so potent is because you have this space here, right? This is way faster compared to before where you had to walk all the way around, you know, into the ramp and still go all the way around just to get to the Gromp. And then you didn't have a shortcut back, right? Like you couldn't just hop over unless there was a blast cone, but that early in the game, no blast cone. So this is great for blue side, and it's really annoying for red side too. So you have to worry about warding this, warding the dot brush, and warding. It's definitely a benefit to blue.
Path on red side to make the map more symmetrical.
So basically, their bot lane gets more exposed. Red side's bot lane gets more exposed. The outcome of being able to move the Herald more easily, and also approach Dragon more easily. That is like the give and take.
Shifted the brush to the middle of the river, so both teams can more reasonably fight for.
And yeah, as you notice, no river brush ward anymore. You know, you're not fighting over this. Like it's just this and this and this. Okay.
Control. Look alive down there.
Now they're gonna announce new monsters. And so they create these things called grubs. And like they spawn twice in the game unless you don't clear it like ever. They're not hard. If you're a jungler, your pet does enough damage to just kind of clear it. And then it lets you have this like passive where like if you hit the turret, it will deal damage over time to it, right? A dot. And if you get all 6, then you get even further benefit where like they'll spawn like little grubs while you're hitting the turret as well, which is great. And like I said, it's not hard to do, but every time you kill one, it does announce you killed one. So if you won't kill all 3 right away unless like you somehow they're all together and you're doing fantastic AoE. So someone can like, if they're in the area and they see it pop up on the screen, they'll just come over, which can be annoying. But again, if top lane is more isolated, and your top laner is just shitting on the other top laner, and then you have this like nice little objective and they get it, your top laner could do a lot of damage with that. Like he's gonna push better, like he's gonna be able to take turrets better while having a lead, and you're playing in the top lane. Sounds pretty nice.
Of your own to help take it down. Keep in mind that these grubs are an incremental camp, not all or nothing. So slaying even one.
And yeah, so they say like you don't have to take all of them. You can take some of them, and you can even play for just stealing one as well, which is neat. I mean, it is nice to know that like you're not just like playing on one singular monster objective, and then if you lose it, well, shit, that's bad. They get into Rift Herald. This one, I don't really need to say as much, but the main difference is 1, Rift Herald's not as cute, a lot uglier. 2, you can steer it, and it does increase damage if you steer it. And now what's interesting about this, especially also because you can use it to actually affect fights, which is way different than before, because before it was only just purely for pushing, crashing, right? But now, let's say like you're starting Dragon, right? If you're starting Dragon and you activate this thing, you might be able to just get a lot of knockups, and the enemy can't do anything about it, by the way. Like, they can't actually physically stop Herald from running into them. So now it becomes an offensive tool
This cooldown
that
resets if you
no
hit
one's
turret,
ever
but
seen
will
before
lower if
outside
you
of
Welcome aboard the
Nexus
Philly
splits.
Demolition Train. Now let's
So
talk about
that is
What was that?
super interesting. Like, again, just purely outside of the fact that, you know, you could probably secure Herald crashes no matter what on a turret off based on this change, but also the fact you can use it offensively for an objective fight like a dragon. And then they made changes to Baron, right?
Voidborn Tyrant is back and badder than ever before. When he enters the game, you'll know it. Baron takes one of 3 forms when he emerges. Each form
forms.
provides the same classic buff, but alters how he fights and determines the shape of his pit.
Yeah.
But wait, there's more. With Baron's how
So
he
look,
3
this is interesting. So this is the classic version, right? You know and love, you know how it works, right? There's no problems. I think the main difference is I think blue side's map is a little bit more open to approaches as well, right? Because like with how red side is with Dragon, where it was like you had these choke points that are kind of hard to get around with. Blue side equally has easier time walking into Baron from those choke points, right?
forms when he determines the
Then they have
each form provides the same
this one, which is not bad. It lets you play around these chokes as the team taking Baron. So actually sitting in the pit is really nice. So when they come through, like you don't have to wait for them. Like before, you wanted to catch them in the chokes that were outside the Baron pit. Now, since this is more open, you can actually play into the pit and wait for them to come in, and that's really good. And then finally,
buff, but alters how he fights and determines the shape of
this one is really awkward because I feel like if you're taking Baron, I feel like this would be. It's super weird because, you know, with Dragon, you know, you have the push and pull where like one team's on one side and the other team's on the other, and it could literally be like that in this case. It could even be like this. It's so different. But naturally, as you can guess, poke is very prominent in this kind of Baron take. Like, very prominent. And it makes the Baron also much riskier to take in terms of just like 50-50 situations and those kinds of
his
things.
pit. But wait, there's more. With Baron's entrance, the Void's influence spreads across the map, infusing the Scuttlecrab, Brambleback, and Sentinel.
And so now he's going to talk about how, like, you know, now, like, when Baron spawns, like, certain minions or, like, monsters, like, become different. So, like, if you take red buff or blue buff, it gives red buff and blue buff to every surviving member or currently alive member. And then if you take Scuttlecrab, it creates a giant, like, vision explosion, which is neat. And then there's like certain changes with dragons where like if you kill the Infernal Dragon, or sorry, not kill the Infernal Dragon, but if it's like Infernal Dragon map, it doesn't blow up the walls anymore. It just leaves these little cinders, like these little like orange glows on the map. And if you collect it, you gain movement speed.
As in years past, we've made some item adjustments for this new season, like a lot of adjustments. For one,
So that I didn't really like it. I played it a little bit in PBE and I got that map and I was not the most fond of it, to be honest, but
are out, gone, poof. In their place, we're adding removing
it is what it is.
across several champion classes. Mages, assassins,
Now, they're
tanks,
moving
enchanters,
mythics,
fighters,
so no
and
more
archers will
mythics. You
all
can
notice
build whatever the hell you
all
want
the
whenever you
changes when
want,
we
which is
gear up this
great.
season.
I
For
mean,
example,
assuming the
we
items are all
Stormtroopers,
interesting.
those AP assassins and burst
You've probably
boosters
seen
really
clips
wanna
on this
shock
item and
the
such
end.
like that. This
In
item
addition-
is ridiculous, Storm Surge, because
New
you know,
Stormtroopers-
it basically is like when you hit them. I think it's basically if you land spells, they get a proc on them, and after 2 seconds, unless they die, a lightning bolt hits. Now the base damage of it is whatever. I think it's like 100 damage, but it's the fact that it has a 50% ratio. So when you get into later stages of the game, it's gonna do like 300 to 500 damage. That's a lot, and that's not just like to them alone, right? Like that's like to a big AOE, as you're gonna notice. Like when it explodes, watch.
Really wanna shock the
Like, look at this. Look at this. Look at this diameter. That's massive. Ziggs ulti is like this, give or take. So it's like almost like 1.5 times that.
enemy. In addition, we've overhauled the support quest items.
And so this was great. You know, they basically made a change to support items in that now you can get support gold from hitting enemy champs and then also just getting like stacks from execution. So it just made it flexible. You don't have to just, I guess it makes you more, it makes it more mindless in a way. Like you don't have to think about what you're doing outside. Is it give AD or AP? But it's nice. I'll admit it's nice in the end. It gives some balance and it gives some balance. I will say it does suck a little bit because if you played against like Enchanter versus Enchanter, if one Enchanter is beating the other, they're gonna get a lot more gold. And also, you know, if you're an Enchanter versus a melee and you abuse them properly, then you get a lot more gold too. So that like little mini game between the two is like gone now. Whether you care for it or not is up to you.
And when you beat the final
In the
choose
end,
between several upgraded
I
items
mean,
to
like,
suit your playstyle.
it's okay.
Whether you
Like,
prefer
it's not
protecting
like
your
kind of an
carry
end of the
or
world like
more
change to me or
aggressive
anything.
support tactics, we've got you covered.
And then they said like, you know, you get to choose an upgrade basically when you get to your third stage of your support item, which is great. I mean, that change is good because now you can actually have a little bit more input as a support player, especially when you only get like 2 items max at times, like 2 to 3 items max. So having that flexibility, that like change, awesome.
While you're playing around the new map with new monsters and new items, you should keep an eye out for old grudges. We've added a handful.
So yeah, they say like, okay, we added more grudges, you know, like Kha'Zix versus Rengar, and we'll get a little buff. I mean, it's again, it's just like a nice little like mini game to add. And then they talk about like, yeah, like these are like items who change, yada yada yada. Doesn't really matter.
Listen closely, and you might notice the music changing throughout the game based on where you are or what you're doing. Baron boss music, anyone? And now you can celebrate or commiserate with your teammates in
And
a
that's
language
it.
everyone understands. The fist bump. Okay, that was a lot to cover. In summary,
That's pretty much what they did. So they added basically here. They added these things called grubs, right? And then Herald has like more offensive like use, right? Like so instead of it just being for objectives, you can use it for objectives plus like team fights. And then this is purely for objectives, right? And then lanes are harder to gank. So like lanes are like harder to gank. Which naturally means if lanes are harder to gank, you know, that means jungle is going to be put in a little different position. And it also means certain picks might be more interesting now. Like, you know, like Zac, you know, like Talon. Honestly, I'm even going to admit, like, I could see a world where Master Yi is annoying just because he has so much MS, right? Like high MS champs even. It just really depends. And then of course there's like the Baron Pit, right? Like the Baron Pit. And then even the just like walls, like generally the walls. And the most important thing again is to remember that if you're blue side, you have easier entrance into Baron now. And then you also have a nice gank option on bot side. As red side, you have an easier path into moving dual lane up for Herald or like any grubs or something, like, you know, just general movement is easier for them upwards. It's like symmetrical with like blue side. And then you also get an easier access to Dragon. That's like your advantage from blue side for the map. And of course there's like the like purple monsters where you get global shits and like buffs and whatever. And there's also some stuff they didn't touch on, like they got rid of they added something new. I can't remember what it was, where you get like tonics. I think they got rid of biscuits. I think it was maybe they got rid of biscuits. I can't remember exactly, but generally there are a few other changes they didn't cover. And I'm going to, over the course of time, you know, cover these items that they added. You know, champs that have made changes, show some gameplay on PBE. But for now, I just want to do a little reaction video on just what is actually going on for 2024 League of Legends. Thanks for watching.